Hi, this is David Friedman with my co-host Dave Burkus on TCA Crossroads, where entrepreneurs and investors connect. How are you, Dave?
Well, I'm doing fine, David. If I can, let me set the stage for today. First of all, we have a guest, and that's kind of obvious, and I'll tell you what and why. David, you've had about 16 years with TCA Group. I have had, if I can calculate right, 26 years with TCA Group. At the very beginning, I was one of the first class as they began. And we're bringing on today somebody with massive experience in fund management, public investment, but only 3 years experience with the kind of early stage private equity that TCA Group is a specialist for. So we have a contrast here between all of us. We want to show at the same time as delve deeply into why this person that we're about to introduce has come aboard, what he's found, and how he behaves. I think all of us will appreciate all of that as a kind of a different experience. So the man is Glenn Rogers, and if we can bring him on, it's time for us to introduce him. Hi, Glenn. How are you?
Hi, Dave. Good, thanks. Hi, David.
Hey, how you doing, Glenn?
David,
good, thanks.
Further introduction, if you can.
Yeah, so I've known Glenn for 3 years. He's been a member of the TCA Orange County network, and Orange County network is one of 6 different networks within the TCA Venture Group itself. We have done some deals together. We are participating in a variety of strategy programs to try to improve what TCA Orange County does and what the TCA Venture Group does. So Glenn is the perfect person because as we look forward into our way we invest, we have to be able to invest the way our members want us to invest. And we have fundamentally been involved in real early stage seed, some pre-seed, some later seed, some early A. So we're really good on this series, which I've now named Meet the Investor, because every investor is different and the entrepreneurs should understand that these investors are different. And by talking to people like Glenn, they will get a good idea on how to be a better presenter and be more successful in getting funding from people like TCA. So I want to start off with one quick question. What made you join TCA? Other than you heard of Dave and I and our charm. I mean, obviously, it's a different story.
Yeah, of course. So my background, as you guys may or may not know, is I worked at Accenture for 24 years. So I was a senior managing partner there where I ran an Oracle global practice and retired about 5 years ago. After getting involved in that, I ended up going into a number of board roles, which I currently sit on. And one of those board roles led me to an investment that they were working on, which was doing angel investing. And then I did some talking around and I came across a gentleman by the name of J.J. Ritchie at Pismo Ventures. And he's the one that eventually introduced me into TCA. And I've been involved there for 3 years. I spent almost 24 years just in stock investing and been doing that my entire career.
So do you find investing in stocks helpful or not helpful? What's the big difference that you see as an investor? And why your interest in the early startup? You've been here 3 years now, and has your perspective changed, or is it the same?
So I'm like, with my stock investments, right, they're really long-term investments for me, right? And they are mainly managed by a third party for me that does that today through a managed fund. So I don't really do day-to-day trading with those stocks. But where I thought I could add value with my technology background and skills was in the technology investing and in the startup world. So that's why I took a small portion of our investment income and dedicated that to angel investing. And where I think I add the value is I have the technology and systems integration experience that I've had in the past, where I can apply that to the room and to help screen the deals and get involved in due diligence. And then more recently using AI to help do some of that initial pre-screening.
Mm-hmm.
And do I understand that you have either managed or co-managed some funds in your past?
Yeah, so not co-managed a fund, but I work with Hangar 75 Ventures, which is a group that is partially that. And I also got introduced by Grant also by doing that. And inside that, within Hangar 75 Ventures, they also have their own fund that we invest in and purchase and sell companies through that fund also.
Public companies or
No,
early stage?
they are typically startups, Dave. Yeah, so they're startups. We'll either buy the company, basically fly it into the hangar, make modifications to it to fly it away, or we'll then keep the software and then see if it makes it we can use for different organizations. I did one of those where actually I used it for a nonprofit I had, which I sit on, which is Project Access in Orange County, where we took one of the ventures that Hangar 75 had, brought it in-house, modified it, and then launched it for them.
I was interested in understanding your investment thesis. Do you have a specific thesis that you put to play when you're looking at companies within, let's focus on TCA mostly,
Sure.
although you can certainly provide experience on Hangar.
Yeah, so the companies get me interested is in the med space and med device space, right? That's where I've spent, I think, where I've had my most involvement in due diligences, and also in the B2B and SaaS space, and then on the AI and cybersecurity. Those are the 4 main areas that I think is growing a lot within the TCA ecosystem, where I also think we're going to get the most multiples of return on investments.
So here we are. You're 3 years in. You have done due diligence. You have experience from the past.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting experience very quickly in early stage. Have you stepped forward to try and lead a deal yet?
I have not been a due diligence lead yet. I've been on due diligence teams, but I've not been a DD lead yet.
Oh, good. Now I'm going to put him as a lead on something right now. Just the company for you.
I recently brought a deal into TCA as a pre-screen that we just went through, and if that gets through the main room, I will volunteer to be the due diligence lead on that one.
Perfect.
That will teach you a lot. Have you dealt with early stage documentation at this point?
Yeah, and absolutely. Yes. So I understand when we're going through due diligence to go through all that documentation, do all the interviews. I've done some of that when we've looked at companies that we actually did invest in.
So now contrast. You've been 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're in this 3 years. How do you feel about these early stage investments compared to the things you did before?
Well, for me, I'm like with angel investing, right? I'm like most of them aren't going to work, right? So it's finding that needle in the haystack, and if you get a unicorn, great, right? But I understand it's a longer term vision, right? It's 3 to 5 years at a minimum to see anything back. And we've already had some investments I've done externally to the fund that have gone under, right? So I've learned the hard way when early in the early stage of not investing without getting some more guidance, right? So TCA invested in a deal, and then I invested in a deal on top of it, and that was one of the deals that more recently shut down, right? So I'm cautious now of doing external deals, especially in areas I'm not fully familiar with, which was that one.
Yeah. So let me ask you this quick question. You came on board almost at the end of COVID, where
That's
valuations were real high.
Yeah.
What have you seen changing over the last 3 years? And then I have one quick follow-on question beyond that.
So I think the valuations have been high, right? And I think we're trying as a group to get the valuations down, right, to somewhere south of 10 million for deals we're looking at. But I'll be honest, we've been looking at some deals that were a lot larger that I was very interested in, but the group as a whole wasn't, right? So, but I thought there were some great deals in the cyberspace that we could have latched onto. But our internal thesis of our group is $10 million or less seems to be the magic number. That where deals make it through back, right? A little higher than that, but that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah. So when you look at a startup, since you just posed that there's a discriminator based upon value, what are the top 3 things you look for in a startup?
So for me, it's the jockey, right, or the leader, right? You have to have a strong CEO. You have to have a moat, right, or a defensible IP. Right, so someone is going to just take your idea and copy it, right? And it needs to be something that is unique, right? That's out there, right? And it just shouldn't be a way of taking an existing product or an existing service and just making it just different, right? It needs to be something I think that is not out there in the marketplace today, and it's going to contribute back to society in a whole.
Well, it's interesting because the stats show that we invest in about 2.5% to sometimes 5%, depending on the year, of the deals that we see. And half of those deals will be underwater and gone within 5 years.
Right.
Some of those within 2 years, as you've discovered already.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are looking in a way for a needle in a haystack, but when you find it, it pays for all of the things that happened in the meantime.
Right.
So early stage businesses go out of business long before the ones that normally make it. What's your expectation as far as a length of time between original investment and positive liquidity event in your mind from what you've seen or what you've heard?
I think it's at least 5 years. And what I'm hoping for is like one of the med device companies that we've invested in gets us a 10x return that makes up for a couple of the other deals that have gone under. And those are the ones that excite me, because the med device companies we've recently investing in, they're really helping the medical market, right? So, and by us investing in that, we're helping get them to market and get them out faster. And the devices that we're seeing are really helping the people in the hospital perform surgeries, which is one of the companies we looked at.
This may explain why you're willing to go up to a pre-money of 10 million.
Yeah.
I saw your face, David Freeman, when he said 10 million.
Yeah.
And I would never invest in a pre-money of 10 million. I make my money going in, not coming out.
Right.
If I can get a company at 2.5 to 5, I'm in the zone where I'm willing to consider more.
Yeah.
At 10, the stats say that most of these companies sell for 30 to 40 million. That's not 10x.
That's
If you did this at 3, earlier stage and much more risky, 35 is much more than 10 if they don't take a lot more money. And that is where a lot of us have our own personal philosophies. Have you invested in the Orange County Fund?
No, just in the TCA fund for Orange County. Yes.
Well, that's the one.
Orange
Yeah,
County
that's the one,
TCA.
as Dave's saying.
Yes, and I've been in 3. I'm in fund 3, so I've invested in all 3 of the funds.
Okay, good. Yeah,
And then
Dave
a
used to
number of
run the ACE
sidecars
funds,
along the
by
way.
the way.
Yeah, so total of about 100K investing over the 3 years so far.
It's not bad. Now, if you were to give advice to an entrepreneur, how does the entrepreneur provide? What's the best way the entrepreneur can appeal to the TCA investors? Because you have your thesis. I have mine. My face was because some of the biotech and biopharma companies are 15 to 20 million, but they may have $1 billion exit. It's all different. That's why my face was like that, because I invest in those. But would you give advice, if you give advice to the entrepreneurs, what do you see as that advice, and where do you see the mistakes the entrepreneurs are making when they're presenting?
So some of the mistakes I see is when you have somebody giving the presentation that's too technical and that is not able to create a thesis for the room that describes their technology in English speak. We've had that a couple times, right? So it's the wrong person presenting. Or if you have the CEO presenting, he or she may not be a good speaker or a good leader. They may understand how to run their internal business, but not how to present to investors, which then makes the message hard to come across. The second part, I think, is them not giving us a complete deck. So not providing us information on their competitors, not providing us information on their 3 to 5 year horizons of where the investment's going to go to. That's where I sometimes struggle with these guys. And then also them not either having IP or having IP that isn't really defensible, right? That really ties back to the moat, right? So something that's there that can be defended.
Features rather than benefits. We see this all the time with technical CEOs.
Yeah.
They delve deeply into the tech because they're so into it without thinking necessarily of the investor and what the investor wants to see in just a few moments. Nicely said. So talk to us for a few minutes about your specialty, medical devices, and why, and how comfortable you are.
I wouldn't say I'm not a medical guy at heart. As I said, I spent 25 years at Accenture doing systems integrations, and I spent time implementing systems for med device companies. but this is the first time I've actually dove into actually being an investor in medical device companies. So one of the companies that we invested in was a company called SinglePass. And that company really interested me because I got to spend some time with the CEO and actually went down and saw the actual device being used in their surgery, right? So I actually saw it. I got hands-on experience with it,
Right.
and I really saw the value of it and what it's going to bring. And that was one that excited me to actually do a sidecar on, because I think that is something that's going to work. And based upon what we're currently seeing, we may actually get an exit from that company this year.
Yeah, I was a deal lead on SinglePass. We had Bill Colon on. I've invested a couple of times in the company, and in another company that Bill actually came up with. That's how I found the deals. I want to ask you, we talked about medical devices, and we certainly see that as a potential market. What other market segments do you see as high growth that we should be looking into as TCA? That gives the indication to the entrepreneur, these are the hot areas that we're really, that are top of mind.
And I think it's AI, right? AI is one of them, right? And the AI can be applied to whole different types of industries. But as you tie AI into cyber, I don't think cyber is going away, right? So we need to be able to invest in new startup companies that leverage AI technologies to enable us to do that. And I think that is going to be key for us. I think back to the medical devices, I think we need to find the right companies to invest in there, because I think that's where we're going to get our big multiples, right? The SaaS and B2B companies, they're okay, but I just don't see big multiples there.
You played down your experience with Accenture.
I'm sorry?
Every member of TCA comes to TCA with experience in some vertical.
Right.
And so even if you haven't invested, you have that experience with medical devices.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we look for you, especially in due diligence. So don't downplay that. Be happy with it.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I have a quick question for you. Then I want to go into something that we haven't done before. I want to do what we call a rapid round.
Right.
Quick staccato question and answer. I want to share with the other investors out there and the entrepreneurs how quick you are and how smart you are. But where do you see what's the biggest lesson you learned from investing in the past 3 years with TCA and with Hangar 75?
Sure.
The one big lesson.
The one big lesson was the fact that I needed to understand the technology better before investing it from a sidecar perspective. I did not understand the deep technology in this one company we invested in and how they went about their business. That I was too early, right? And I was too naive in the beginning. And I just thought, well, it sounded like great. TCA invested in it. I came in on the back end of a fund that I had just joined, and I ran too quickly, right? So I invested too fast. And I spent time with the CEO and I spent time with his team, but I went too quick.
Okay.
Right.
Good answer. How about this one? Equity, note, or safe?
Well, equity to me, and then safe is second.
All right. Best pitch you've ever seen?
SinglePass.
Why?
Well, the main reason I really liked that presentation was because they were able to create a 3D model of their device and showed it how it worked during our meeting, right? And they, of course, brought a device with them, but they showed the actual technology being used on a graphic, right, in a 3D image to show exactly the benefit it was going to bring back to the actual user.
All right.
Okay. Biggest lesson you've learned as an angel investor in your 3 years?
Well, as I said, the biggest lesson for me was not moving too fast, right? Really understanding the technology and what makes up the company and how it's going to drive its growth.
Diversification or focus? Do you want to diversify into the fund, or do you want to focus on one or two different segments, as you pointed out?
Diversification for me, I think, is key versus going single, because it enables you to limit your risk across a number of different companies.
What stage is most comfortable for you? Pre-revenue, early stage, or getting to the center stage where you think you can get a faster exit?
Well, where I think the biggest bang for our buck would be on the pre-revenue side and then on the seed side, because that's where we're going to typically see lower valuations. that if we hit it right, and we create the right contract around it, and ideally, I'd love to make sure that we get a board advisor seats on these companies, because I think that's something that we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Every deal I think we go after, I think we need to ask for it. And if we're investing as a whole with a syndicate across multiple areas where we're putting in $300,000, we need to mandatory ask for a board seat or we walk away. Because we got to keep our fingers inside the deals. Because I think we see the most benefit when we're actually be able to inside the deals and be part of that boardroom discussion to see where things are going versus just getting notifications after the fact.
Syndication of deals or lead the deals? Which one would you rather see?
I'd like us to lead the deals.
And last question in our rapid round. One piece of advice, if you can think of it, that you would give to your younger self now that you've been through 3 years of this.
Younger self would be to not move too fast, right? And then as you're going through, get educated on angel investing, right? So go through the ASA group and take their training. Those 8 or 9 modules were really phenomenal, right? Because it enabled me to understand all the different complexities of angel investing. And I took that through Bill Payne's course, and I did that probably a year into it. And I wish I would have did it in the first 3 months.
We all do.
Yeah.
David, go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah. So what we've learned today from an investor, Glenn Rogers, who's been with TCA for 3 years, is that the entrepreneur has an opportunity to provide a really good story, but that story should be based upon the leadership of the company, differentiation, sustainability, and a good value so we can make a good return. We, the investors, can make a good return. And for the investor community, especially the younger investors, get involved, learn. You don't have to jump in, diversify, but also make sure you focus on those areas and those segments you know the best and invest in those areas. And of course, without question, watch TCA Crossroads for a lot of advice and join a group such as TCA Venture Group, because you have a lot of smart people that can help you out in investing and bringing in the deals. And with that, I wish everybody a good day and good investing to all.